Bird flight itself is extremely complicated. The mathematics of all of that is extremely complex. It's systems of dynamical equations. It's almost chaotic. It's a very complicated mathematical thing. So I had to simplify it. And so it starts out at 14 feet above the floor, sitting on the rafters, swoops down so its height is decreasing. Then after it hits the window at about 5.2 seconds, it falls to the floor, so the height decreases then in a linear way. And then right here we have a problem. We have a problem right there when it hits the window. So what happens when the bird hits the window? Richard said that when he walked into the abandoned space, that he saw dead birds lined up about 4 feet back from the window. And so, you have to use your imagination. The bird hits the window, and then does the bird rebound to 4 feet? Does the bird fall down and then bounce back to 4 feet? Is there fluttering going on as the bird's dying? These are things that I'm not certain about. And so maybe they don't bounce back. Maybe they just fall. So in order to get some feeling for what was happening to the birds, I just started throwing things against a wall to see if Richard was right. Here's a pillow. All right, so you imagine that this is a bird, and it comes slamming into the window. What happens? It bounces back. It did this. It didn't do this. Okay? So, bouncing back. It's some distance from the window. Not 4 feet, but then this, of course, I don't know how this compares to a starling. I did a lot of talking about this to friends, and while I was working on this, a friend of mine happened to have some time on her hands while she was waiting for her son to get out of a doctor's appointment, and she was in a library waiting. And so she knew that I was throwing pillows against the wall and trying to figure out what happened to birds, and so she did a little research of her own, and she discovered that some birds do indeed bounce. They hit the floor and bounce a little back. So I think that's what Richard was seeing. All right, there are 3 graphs here that show 3 different views of what's happening during the event. And the event will be the bird leaves the perch, which is 14 feet above the floor, swoops 160 feet to the window, hits the window 8 feet above the ground, falls to the ground, and then takes a small, very small bounce so that its final resting place is 4 feet in front of the window. Okay? So that's what I mean by the event. The first, during the swooping, is modeled by a quartic function. The second, which is the falling from the window, was modeled by a linear function of time. The third, which is the bounce, was modeled by a parabolic function. And the final one is the zero function, when it's 0 height above the floor. During the swooping, the function's modeled by a logistic curve, and then afterwards by just the zero function. During the swoop, the model is a quartic function. During the bounce back from the window, it's linear. And then again, there's a constant function 4 for its distance from the window ever after.